All right, this is a bit of a fun video. What we're going to do today is we're just going to talk a little bit about our newly released conical paper filters. So I know a lot of you guys actually really enjoy our flat bottom paper filters, whether you use them with the Omni dripper or you use it with your own flat bottom brewer. You know, these are great filters. I actually really like them. These are filters that flow fast, they fit nice, harder to clog. You can brew a variety of coffees, but I think a lot of people who enjoy these coffees really enjoy being able to grind very fine without things clogging and, you know, pushing higher extractions. So we kind of took this and we said, okay, well, let's do that, but for cone. So we recently just released these. These are the conical paper filters. And they're right here. And what I'd like to do is just brew a cup of coffee and talk a little bit about how they handle and what to expect when you get them in. But it's filter fun. We love paper filters. We love people who experiment with different paper filters on the machine. But this is more for you guys who are brewing by hand, because we already know there are a lot of people who use these for hand brews and your pour overs at home. And you don't maybe necessarily have a machine, but we want you guys to understand the cool stuff we do here at xBloom. So that is why we have these. So in the box, you'll get 100 of these. I'll open this up so you guys can see. You'll get 100 of these paper filters in the box like that. And these are designed for 01 or single cup brewers, so brewer of this size. And these paper filters are really, really nice. They're very fast. You can grind quite fine. We'll use the studio as a grinder today, and we'll brew a pour over, and then they open up like this. So yeah, paper filters. Exciting. I think this is a really great paper filter for those of you who want to have just a very forgiving brewing experience. So what I mean by that is being able to grind really fine, not having to worry too much about, say, fines clogging, or just honestly a paper filter that clogs, or a slow paper filter. We have come up with a paper filter that's very fast, you know, very reminiscent of this, but just in cone shape, because we know a lot of you guys have cone brewers. And what I've been enjoying with these paper filters is actually brewing my very vibrant light roast coffees that are a little harder to extract, which, you know, there are a lot of different approaches to brewing coffee, but for these paper filters, I like to grind fine, and I like that they don't stall at all. I'm gonna brew a cup of coffee for you all, and we'll talk a little bit about how things taste. But, you know, these paper filters, they flow very fast. If you can see, I'm just pouring water in here. You'll see it's basically draining at the same rate as I'm pouring water from my kettle into the dripper. Very fast flowing, you know, water isn't clogging anywhere. And depending on what brewer you have, you know, these paper filters stick very well to the edges, which can help minimize bypass. Obviously, this depends on what pour over dripper you're using. But for example, here, things work out very well. But yeah, flow is very fast from these, so you totally can extract a ton of different things out of your coffee, and they don't have any of that weird papery taste that you might experience in, say, other paper filters. I actually really, really like using this grinder and doing hand pours. You can, of course, always use the brewer on this machine, but sometimes it's fun to just do things by hand and, you know, see how good you are at brewing coffee. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna brew a coffee we currently have from our friends at Standout. This is a wash papayo. Ooh, pretty crazy. On these paper filters, I definitely think 15 to 18 grams is very comfortable. You can brew lower amounts, but I think that will depend on what brewer you're using. For me, I love 15 grams. All right, so we're gonna do 15 grams. And on studio, if you ever were curious, although this is highly, highly dependent on coffee, roast level, processing, and all of that, is the grind size. You know, the grind size I'm gonna use for this is actually gonna be pretty fine. We're gonna do like 48, I think is a good starting point for this. And I'll lower the RPM to 60. So definitely a lot finer. These paper filters are fast, so you can get away with grinding finer and pushing coffees a little bit harder. Although, you know, this is, of course, dependent on how you pour water on coffee and your pour over technique. But I'll show you guys just how fast these paper filters flow. But of course, you always can pick up coffees and paper filters from xBloom site. This is a pretty fun coffee. It is a washed papayo from Standout Coffee. It has been dry fermented. It is still washed at the end, but definitely fermented coffee. Some of those coffees that are more fermented, you do need to grind finer or they will flow fast. But what I'll do is I'll just pour this in here, and 48 is definitely on the finer end for just this grinder, in my opinion, for pour over. So you can see I'm grinding a little bit finer just to show you guys, how nice these paper filters are, but got that in there. All right, so I'm gonna begin brewing. I'm just gonna do a very standard 3-pour recipe. And what I'm going to do is I'm then just gonna swirl this at the end to try to show you how the fines collect on the paper filters. But essentially, this is a very forgiving paper filter. So I'm just gonna pour 60, and you can already see how fast the flow is out here. And we're grinding fairly fine, although, of course, the point is with this is just you don't need to worry too much about paper filters clogging. You can play around with finer grind sizes. If you have a grinder that does create more fines or is of a lower quality grinder, you don't need to worry so much about things clogging. You can kind of just focus more on what does the coffee taste like and how to brew. And I am grinding pretty fine with this paper filter. But you can see the flow out here is nice and constant. And then for those of you who can see, if you want to zoom in a little bit, bypass, at least on this brewer, is quite low. So you can extract this kind of full flavor expression even at these finer grind sizes with a paper filter like this. So you can get away with doing a lot is what I'm saying. Go. I'm just going to pour this up to 240. And then I'm going to give this a little swirl and a tap. So that's a pretty standard pour over recipe right there. And we'll just let this kind of drain through, but you can see that the paper filter is not stalling, it's not clogging, we are very fine, to be frank, but it is just constantly flowing through. So you can take a lot of these more like expressive coffees, whatever you want to put into here, and you don't need to worry too much about stalling. And for sure, I am very, very fine, and I guess this proves my point a little bit more. So yeah, this finishes up in around 2 minutes and 11, but you can see that I'm grinding very, very fine. Definitely maybe don't grind this fine for a lot of the coffees, but you can see all the fines are captured up here. In a cone brewer, you see the grinds kind of pool up on the sides there. That is a little too fine, but the point is that even if we're grinding this fine, you can see all the fines in here, fine and fines, we don't see any stalling of the brew. And there you go. Of course, does this taste good? That's highly dependent on your pour over technique and all of that. But what we just wanted to talk a little bit about today and show this off, this just kind of for fun, is the paper filters. So these are available on the website. Feel free to pick them up, buy some beans from us. But yeah, you can totally take this and stick it in other cone-shaped brewers that you have. We've really liked these paper filters, and we're like, yeah, let's make them cone as well. Because we know a lot of people who don't have xBlooms. You guys like our paper filters, and we wanted to just give you guys kind of that same experience with our filters. So there you go. That's what we wanted to show off today. If you have any questions, let us know. I can make more videos about how to brew coffee, but I thought this was just a quick demo of using this as a grinder and just brewing with our brand new paper filters, the Conical Paper Filters. Link is in the description. Pick up these if you like, pick up some beans from us. But otherwise, thank you guys so much for spending time to watch this video. I'll see you guys in the next one.